Landscapes of frozen wastelands, mountains so tall they scratch the surface of the skies, endless empty flatlands, oceans of dark, frozen pine forests, and wet, dark swamps. Miles upon miles of uninhabited and uninhabitable land harbour enough space, enough of the unknown, that humans get so afraid of. Whether it is the icy tundra of Siberia clad in darkness for half the year, or the depths of the forests further south, swallowing all light even in the mid of day, there are enough places for monsters to hide away. Places secluded enough to silence the screams of anyone unfortunate enough to encounter them. The stories tell enough of things lurking out there, things born of darkness, of tragedy and of misery, looking to cause nothing less than that. With so many things feeding off the dark, it can be hard to prepare for all of them. But here are a few to know about. Because maybe, just for once, knowledge will be enough power to protect you. 5. Baba Yaga. The depths of the forest carry the weighty, booming steps of something big roaming among the trees. The ground shakes with every boom. The vibrations make the air in your lungs grow much heavier until you can barely stand anymore. And then, the steps stop as suddenly as they started. You can feel the eyes on your back, watching hungrily. You can feel the draft of air of a breath coming down all around you. The dread of the thing looming behind you freezes your limbs, and when you turn around, it is anything but a conscious decision. The first thing you can see are the legs, those alone towering as tall as a house, thick as logs, scaled and ending in a pair of 4-toed chicken feet. They carry a house with a grimace for a front, windows for eyes with fires behind them, and a hissing maw, breathing hot air down on you. It would not take much for it to sit down. The weight would easily crush you underneath it. Still, the house is not your greatest worry. Something crashes down right in front of you. You can't tell whether it came from the house or straight from the tips of the trees. But as the dust of her landing clears, you can see the gigantic mortar half buried into the ground. Her hands reach out over its top first. Long bony fingers with sickly grey skin stretching over them. Warts and moles cover her hands. One of them grasping onto somewhat of a stone club. A pestle matching the mortar she is crawling out of. Her face looks like it's melting. The same thin grey skin stretching over a nose that seems to be a singular petrified wart. Her eyes almost covered by the loose skin. She still stares at you from rotten, fuming eyes. And all that is left for you to do is pray that you caught her on a good day. Baba Yaga is one of the most popular folktales of the Slavic cultures. She lives in a house in the woods that stands and walks on chicken legs. Some stories portray her as an evil witch, stealing and eating children, killing those she encounters in her forest. In other stories, she takes on somewhat of a maternal role. But it remains hard to imagine that a witch like her could have any good intentions. 4. BAUR. You've seen the shadows move before. Out of the corner of your eye, you can always see the shifting in the darkness. The twitching, the twinkle of something catching the limited amount of light that reaches those pitch-black depths. A single moment, a fraction of a second making you think you heard something. A growl, or a shuffle in the dark. But the moment you turn your head, the shadows are still as ever. It is when you are turned away, when you're not paying enough attention and the darkness has a chance to spread. It is then that the long clawed fingers start reaching out for you, inching closer from behind. Never noticed until it's too late. because once the claws dig into your flesh, it will be. Snatched away as if you weighed nothing more than a feather, dragged into the dark to join the beast that lurks there. You won't know where you are when it brings you to its den. Far enough for the distance to swallow the sound of your screams before they can reach any kind of civilization, any attentive ears. Leaving the darkness that devoured you is the least of your problems. The bog is one of the many animal-based creatures in Slavic folklore. Its nature, hiding away in dark places, holes and abandoned houses, leaves little information to be found out. It is a lurking hunter, waiting until its prey comes close enough for it to swipe it away without much of a fight. Because of that, it has rarely been seen, and the people who could accurately describe its appearance have never lived to tell the tale. Only a few unfortunate souls came close enough to tell the shape of the bulk. A hunched-over, somewhat humanoid frame, but a flattened head with a thin coat of fur stretching over the back of the otherwise skin-covered creature. Its mouth spreads almost from ear to ear, filled with rows of sharp teeth. In its lurking position, usually squatting down on the ground with its knees perched up, its legs and its body seemed almost to be the same length, its arms a lot shorter. It can be assumed that standing up, this creature would easily tower over a grown man. Some sources believe the BAUR to be the cultural memory of bears in an area where those had gone extinct. But sometimes people tend to look for explanations that let them sleep better at night. 3. Kikimora. The sound of mice skittering around your basement or behind the cupboards of your kitchen, in the walls and behind the stove, you have gotten used to. You've never caught any, despite the countless traps you have put out already. They always turn out empty. But the noise never stops. It gets angrier, demanding. A rustling that robs your sleep pounding in the walls. Nothing you can't live with, however annoying it may be. Until the dishes start crashing on the floor, littering the ground in shards and tearing you from what little sleep you can still get. That might be the last hint you get that is indeed not mice skittering around your walls. You'll know when you wake up in the middle of the night, a weight on your chest and a pressure around your throat, when she looms over you, sitting on your chest. The only entrance she needed was the keyhole of your door. The last thing you see might be her eyes, set deep into her disfigured face, not even the glint of moonlight in them as her fingers tighten more and more around your throat. Kikimori are believed to be the bad spirit of the house, a female house spirit and the counterpart of the domovoi, the good spirit of the house. She lives in dark, dusty places in the house, like the cellar or behind the stove, and makes noises similar to house mice to obtain food. There are two kinds of them, one coming from the forest, a small creature with chicken eggs and a disfigured face. The other comes from the swamp, described as an old woman, small, hunchbacked and thin, a pointy nose and dishevelled hair. It is said that she can be identified by wet footprints. Outside of a house she haunts. She busies herself knocking travellers off the roads, drowning them, or, if you're lucky, just scaring them off her lands. However, once she is inside the house, it is near impossible trying to make her leave again. With a part of Mora in her name, Kikimora is part of the same sort of monster as the Scandinavian mares. Both names nodding to the word nightmare. She is believed to be the first attempt at explaining sleep paralysis. Then again, sleep paralysis might just be the modern attempt to explain the workings of the Kikimora. 2. BABAY. It was those times as a child when you laid awake in bed, unwilling or unable to sleep. The night always seemed too young. There was so much to do and so much time you thought you could use better than wasting it to sleep. When even your parents had already gone to bed or still sat in the other room, you could still quietly hear them talking through the walls. This side of the house was dark, but you still noticed the shadows slowly shifting in front of your bedroom window. It's the moment when you start grasping your blanket in hopes that it would save you from whatever you could see out of the corner of your eyes. Your window started fogging up with the breath of whatever was watching you. You feel like you can hear its deep, slow breath, as if it's right in your ear. And then, the scraping starts. A quiet screeching noise of nails dragging down the glass. You held your breath, but it already knew you were awake. The knocking was slow, deliberate, too controlled to be just the wind. You told yourself that it was just the wind, when something started rustling at your window. Pulling the blanket over your head and trying to sleep would be the best option. It is the morbid curiosity that would make you sit up to take one last peek. What is the worst thing that your mind could come up with? The thing that haunts you in your deepest nightmares. The ones that have you waking up in a cold sweat with a scream on your lips. Can you even imagine it? BABAY uses the veil of the night to move along the streets. He walks with a limp, a black sack slung over his shoulder. A black, lame and mute mass as long as he is not watched. Anyone who encounters him on the streets, anyone out past their bedtime, will be snatched into the shadows he treads in and stuffed into his bag. What he is really after, however, is the children. Any child awake at night will be haunted by BABAY, watched and taunted with scary noises until they get up, which is when he will snatch them from their rooms, never to be seen again. He is sometimes described as a pitch-black, crooked and maimed man, but it is when you see him that BABAY will reveal the extent of his form. A spider, the size of a house, its enormous fangs reaching out to you, 8 black eyes blinking through the darkness as its hairy feet skitter towards you. A man raised from the dead, face fallen in and skin torn up, rotten over his bones, teeth dripping with blood and saliva. The deep guttural groans echoes along the street, the deep growl of a wolf behind you, its breath in your neck. Before you can turn around, you're snatched by teeth bigger than your forearms. Whatever your mind can't come up with, whatever will traumatize you the most. In the end, it doesn't matter whether you know. What you're most afraid of, what holds the capability to scar you for life. The BABAY will, and it will use it against you. 1. PORONIEC. You clutch on to the memory of the child you lost, the child you never got to meet, dead before it ever saw the light of day. The same child you hear crying outside your window every single night. It started a couple of days after the stillbirth of the fetus, the crying that would hold for hours on end. The first cry, still of that newborn child, clear, bright and innocent, filled with the promises of everything that was taken from you. The second, far less so. A gargling accompanies the cry, the sound of a drowning child even when there's no water around. A voice becoming more and more hoarse, the cries screeching through the night. You know that it is only waiting for you, baiting you to step outside. And when the crying doesn't work, when it stops luring you into a false sense of safety, it will start whispering to you, "Mama, Mama." By the time the space starts distorting around you, when things start floating and throwing themselves against the walls, you've already lost your mind enough to follow them and smash your head into the wall until the voice stops crying for your help. The PORONIEC is said to be a malicious demon come into existence from a stillborn fetus or a child that died in infancy. The potential of unrealized life it holds inside it makes it incredibly powerful, haunting or killing those that were supposed to be part of its life. The PORONIEC takes the form of the deceased fetus, showing the reason of its demise. The slowly rotting skin turned blue from the umbilical cord wrapped around its throat. Any disfigurement, no matter what form it takes, all too prominent. Sometimes, especially when spawned from a late stillbirth, it can take on a more demonic shape, with a wide, sharp-toothed mouth, a long blue tongue hanging out of its mouth, and eyes too big for its skull. Sometimes they have no physical form at all, except for the ghostly rotting image of an infant, still swaddled in their blanket. The legend says that PORONIEC can be prevented with the burial of the stillborn fetus underneath the threshold of the house, then instead turning it into Klobik, a protective house spirit. But none can imagine the horrors the families of such demons must have gone through when they had no such option. Darkness, tragedy, and misery. Nature is no stranger to them, and neither are the dark worlds, those that demons and monsters spring from. It bears so many more everywhere in the world. But like for certain areas of nature, your best bet of surviving them is to avoid them altogether. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I know there is a ton of content out there, and I sincerely appreciate you watching this right through to the end. Again, if you enjoyed it, please go ahead and hit the like button, and if you don't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and select the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. Also, please leave a comment on this video, let me know what you thought of it. Comments really help with the YouTube algorithm and will really help my channel to grow. Also, let me know what type of videos you would like to see more of on this channel. That really helps me branch out into new subject matters. If you have a story you would like me to narrate, please email it to me at stories@daredevil.com. I'm getting really close to my next major milestone of 100,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who is continuing to subscribe to this channel and contributing to its growth by liking videos and leaving comments. I'm currently in the process of working on a 3-hour Wendigo story video featuring completely original stories. Once I reach 100,000 subscribers, I'll have that ready to release for you all. If you want to support my channel even further, there are a number of ways you can do so. You can buy me a coffee via my Ko-fi account, check out my Teespring store and consider purchasing one of my shirt designs, or simply help me out by sharing my content with anyone you might think is interested in watching it. Thanks again.